Okay, Bob.
It's February 19th, 1 o'clock. We're at the home of Mary Hepner, who's graciously allowed us into her house to investigate and discuss her life a little bit. It's a great pleasure to be here and with John Hanson, Bobby Nelson here. So with that, Mary, you've been in Bayfield many years now. You've been a part of the people of Bayfield. You've been in many organizations. You've done all kinds of things in your life. And we're going to get to all that stuff in just a little while, but I want to start off right now by just telling us who you are, when you were born, where your mom and dad were, a little bit of your family history.
Okay. I was born July 5th, 1928, and I was born in Appleton, Wisconsin, and that's 5 miles from Menasha, where my family was living then. My father was Frank Dexter of English heritage, and my mother, the former Mamie Wooldridge, and I don't know their heritage. I had one sister, Catherine, who was 7 years older than I was, and in later years after my mother died and my dad remarried, his son Arthur was born. 7 years after I was born, my mother got pregnant and very ill and was hospitalized for months and had a miscarriage, and she was never really in good health after that.
So, okay, so that'd be about 1935,
Yeah.
all that?
So I grew up in Menasha.
Okay.
I took piano lessons. I took singing lessons in Appleton, so I had to ride my bike 5 miles to Appleton and 5 miles back every week when I had voice lessons. And there was an Olympic-sized swimming pool in Neenah, which was 2 miles away, and I used to spend most of my afternoons there in the summer swimming and diving because those were two of my loves. So
So the earliest part of your life was spent in that Appleton area?
yeah, in Menasha.
And you went to the unified schools down there, or?
Yeah, I went to it was kind of fun because it was just a straight line from our house right down to the grade school. And we used to roller skate to school in the summer and back, you know. I was always very active, and then later when I went to high school, I rode my bike just about every day.
So you
Went
went
to
to
high
like
school.
the Appleton West High School, or?
No, this is Menasha.
Menasha, okay,
Yeah.
Neenah Menasha,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your father doing in those days?
He worked as a linotype operator at Bonta Publishing Company, but he had always loved Bayfield area and Ashland because he had attended Northland Academy before it was Northland College.
Okay.
And so we had relatives that lived in Ashland that were affiliated with the college. So when the Bayfield County Press was up for sale, he decided he was going to buy the newspaper. So that was in 1944. And he came up at the end of 1944, and my mother and I came up in early 45. My sister was grown and teaching by then, so.
Okay.
Was he also in the newspaper business before he came
No, but he was a wonderful writer. I mean, he very seldom typed anything out ahead of time, just off the top of his head. He was a wonderful writer, you know. And
What year was Frank born then? Do you remember?
no.
About what year doesn't really. I want to say he was
I
probably.
have it written down someplace here in one of the books.
That's all right.
That's not
Yeah.
a big deal. I'm just kind of
No.
curious that
And
he was a little bit older than my
Yeah,
parents. and-
he died when he was 75, and he died in 74.
So he was born in 99?
I don't know. You have
1899.
to
Yeah,
subtract it.
1899. He'd been around for a while.
Yeah.
well, did his folks come over here then? And if they did, where'd they come from? What country?
All I know is it was everything was English with my father's side of the family.
The Dexter name.
Yeah, the Dexter name. Yeah, and later on with Bill, it was always the German, you know, Hepner name, you know.
So you're not sure where his parents came from in England?
No,
Yeah.
no.
But they must have come
I
over.
didn't go back that far.
But they came. But they came over here. So he was born in this country.
Yeah, he was
then?
born in this country.
Yeah. Okay.
As was your mother then too?
Oh yes,
So they're
Yeah.
true Americans.
yeah.
And have they lived in that Appleton area and Menasha area for a long time?
Yeah. Gee, they lived there for quite a while. You know,
They must have got married in
I don't even remember when they got married.
probably in the 20s sometime.
Yeah,
From Santa Teresa. You were born in 28.
in 28. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you had a sister that's 7 years
Yeah.
older.
hmm
What was her name again?
Catherine.
Catherine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is she still here? Or?
She married Rudy Anich from
Oh,
Ashland.
yeah. Hello.
Yeah, and they had 7 children, and Phil Anich, who sings at Chautauqua, is my nephew.
Oh, interesting.
And so he,
Oh.
when Matt was born, he couldn't say Mary. He said Mimi. So my sister's kids all call me Mimi. Philip will see me downtown and around Applefest to say, hi, Mimi, and people look like, who's he talking to? I don't know a Mimi. You know? Yeah, so we were very close because
Okay.
they lived in Ashland and we lived here.
And,
You know,
and
so.
okay, good. Now I get the connection. That
Okay.
makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So, Frank came to Bayfield in about 1944.
Yeah.
You're sparkling young adult of.
It was the end of my junior year of high school, and I was not a happy camper. I was very unhappy when we moved because I was used to swimming at this big pool, and we had a swimming pool in our high school. I was used to playing tennis all the time, no tennis court here in Bayfield. The only really fun thing to do was roller skating here in Bayfield, and that was fun. You know, I enjoyed that. But otherwise, I was not happy. Those two.
Yeah, you had to leave your friends behind.
Yeah, I know.
And you were
It's-
16, and that's a critical period
it's
in your
not
life.
a good time to leave. And at first the newspaper was where the Brownstone Center is now.
Oh, okay.
And then we moved it over to the corner right across from the Bayfield, from the inn.
Sure.
And all the presses had to be moved and everything too. So at first when we came, we lived for a little while in the Bayfield Inn. You know, we just had 2 rooms there. And then we moved over and lived upstairs above the press office
Okay.
on the corner. Yeah.
I can remember being in there barely with your dad, and I obviously remember when Jabot Johnson bought it a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I can still see everything inside that building.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Well, when we came, not that long after we came, I sang over on the island at something. And of course we took the ferry, and we couldn't come back because it had been such a bad storm. And the ferry would not bring us back, so we stayed on Madeline Island that night. And when we came back, there was sand all in the front. And it wasn't like the first big flood,
Okay.
but it was just enough sand, and we had sand in our basement and
Mini
sand
flood.
all over the place, you know.
Yeah.
But then that's when people told us all about the first flood,
Okay.
you know,
So that was that little rainstorm and stuff happened after
after 45.
F-45.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get here and you take a look at Bayfield. It's not really where you wanted to land, but here you are. So you deal with it, I imagine.
Yeah, I dealt with it.
and then you went into the Bayfield schools then at that point in time? Or?
Yeah, well, it was almost time to graduate then,
Uh-huh.
you know, from high school. And so when I graduated from high school, I went to Northland, and I majored in public school music, and I minored in education, French, and almost English. And that's when I began writing a lot of sacred music, because I would go home weekends and run all the presses. And when you stand at a press for 5 hours running off things, you can do a lot of thinking. And I liked to write poetry and stuff, so that's when I started writing words to music and started really seriously writing music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So your background was a lot in music as a
Oh,
child,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
was your mother and dad, were they really, they push you hard into music, or were you a
Oh
natural?
no, my dad could play. My dad could not read music, but he would hear a song and he could sit down and play it. If someone would play a hymn, he could play that hymn in any key you wanted in it. I mean, it was just a gift that he had.
Yeah.
You know, so he always played for me. And of course, when I was growing up, I sang a lot and everything, but.
Were you like in gospel choirs, or were you in just regular
Well, I
church
was
choir?
in the college choir, the Northern College Choir, and in the high school, groups at Menasha and stuff, but growing up. But
Tell me a little bit about Bayfield High School when in 1946.
I remember the first basketball game that I went to when I came here and went to Bayfield High School, and they were playing Washburn. And the rivalry was like this. And I remember Washburn won, and all these girls were crying, and I thought, what is wrong with them? I didn't know the history of, how much they had competed over the years for everything.
You didn't know it went right back to the
No.
stealing of the courthouse?
Oh yeah, and we were up there. That's where the ball game was played.
Sure.
In the in the little courthouse. Well,
Yeah.
But I thought, why are they crying? It's just a game.
Do you remember any of the kids on the team then, or?
Not too much. Lawrence Gordon.
Lawrencey?
Certain kids I remember. For different reasons. And a lot of the girls that I got to be close to, I remembered. But
So you were in the class of 46 then?
I was in the class. Yeah.
Okay. Graduating class of 46. And then you got out of Bayfield, and then you went immediately to Northland?
I went right to Northland. And that's when I said I started writing a lot of music then. And when we came here, I had a background as a family with going to the Congregational Church in Menasha for all those years. And the Presbyterian Church is kind of close. So I started playing the piano there and going there. So I was home a lot of weekends, and I'd play the piano and sing and stuff.
Have you been been playing the organ and piano in the church for
Oh, yes.
ever?
Well, I still remember the first time I played there. I played the piano, and I played a duet with Marion Pipple, who was Marion Aiken's sister. And I remember I was so scared. My heart was thump, thump, thump. And the notes were swimming on the literally swimming on the page. The first time, and I thought, why am I doing this? And little did I realize it in a very short time I would be playing the piano and then playing the organ later on. I remember the first time I sang at two churches. I remember the first time I sang at the Lutheran church, and my sister came home from teaching that weekend, and so she played for me. So I got up and started singing this song. I can't even remember the song, but it wasn't anything really familiar. I forgot the words. I was too far away from the piano to see the words. So
Panic.
since I was a poetry writer, I began making up the words one line ahead so that they would rhyme. And my dad was sitting here like this with his hand over his face, and they just about died. And my sister's shoulders were going up and down because she was laughing so hard. And so never again, whenever I would sing in church, I had this little notebook that had the words put in, and I might not have to look at them.
Yeah.
But I thought, I will never do that again.
That's your...
And then there was another church, it was Mother's Day. Now, what would you think they would talk about on Mother's Day, the preacher? So I sang this song relating to mothers and religion and children and stuff. Not one word about mother the whole day. Well, this was not a good idea. But I just remember different funny things, that happened.
Who was the preacher then?
I don't even know. I don't even remember all the different preachers.
Millage probably at the Lutheran church back in those. Remember Reverend Millage?
No.
And I'm not familiar with the Presbyterian church. There was a whole pile of them there.
I know they had some.
You passed through quite a few ministers over there.
Oh yes, yeah.
Before you leave today, Mary, you need to name. No, I'm just kidding you.
Oh well, that's when I say no comment, no comment.
Yeah, no comment, no comment. So, tell me a little bit more about high school here. Who were your teachers in Bayfield School?
Oh, now see, that's the kind of thing you're going to ask me. Well, Harriet Johnson was probably one of my favorite teachers.
Okay.
And Carl Larson was principal, but he also taught geometry. And I had him for geometry. And I really should tell you this because I'm sure other people will say, why didn't Mary tell you this? But when I was in geometry class and he was our teacher, and there was a tack on the floor, which I saw. It was right near the teacher's desk. And I picked it up. And somebody said, put it on the chair, on his chair. Stupid Mary.
Oh boy.
Put it on the corner of his chair. He walked in. I froze. Every part of me wanted to say, don't sit down, but I froze. He sat on the tack. He got up, he walked out of the room. The kids and I just looked at each other and thought, oh, Lord, what did I do? So, nothing happened. And then we heard he was asking around about it. And so I thought, well, I'm going to be found out. Anyway, so I went in and I confessed. And he was very surprised and very disappointed that Mary would do something like that. And I thought, well, I was very disappointed that Mary would do it too, you know. And so then the next day in geometry class, he asked me to leave the class. And of course, my girlfriends felt awful. I felt awful. Then finally, a few days later, he came and he invited me to come back in the class. You know, 'cause he knew how bad I felt, you know, and but I think I still got an A in geometry, because you know I was good in geometry, and he was a very nice man and a very fair man, and I think he thought, oh, this kid, what did she do?
He was a
It was
pretty.
not a finer moment of my life.
I remember Carl a little bit as you know. I had him in my earliest days. He died in 1960, and I had him in school for those 4 years. And I remember people saying that a lot of kids were scared to death of him.
Oh yeah, he would just look at you,
Yeah.
and yet he was almost a very quiet, self-contained person. You know, he never screamed or anything like that. Very good teacher. You
He
know.
was a pretty intelligent guy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
See, he came in 37 when Lila Stark left.
Oh, okay.
And he'd been here probably 11 years by the, no, 9 years by the time you were here. Do you remember his wife Gladys at all?
Oh yeah.
Tell us.
I remember Gladys, and I'm trying to think. I associate her with music some way, and I don't know if she played the piano, but I just associate with going to their house for something with music.
Yeah.
I don't know if I played for her or she played for me for something or what.
Did they live over on 2nd Street then?
They lived right down the block here then. I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can remember him living in where
Not
Vic
that far
Goodlet
from
used to
Tula
live.
Larson's old house.
Right, the
Yeah.
next house
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. She was very, very nice.
Yeah, she's my
very
favorite
nice.
teacher. She was my 2nd grade teacher,
Oh, okay.
Gladys. Who did you have for English in high school? Is that Harriet?
I had Harriet for social studies. Who did I have? I don't even remember.
Was there a music teacher up there then?
Yeah, there was a music teacher, but I don't remember who that was either.
Did you have any marching bands or anything in those days, or what was the music? What was the music situation like in Bayfield? It's pretty good now, I hear.
Now you mean when I was going to school or a little later?
Well, in Bayfield High School, did they have a band and stuff like that? Or?
Well, later on, after graduating from college and stuff, at one point when I taught in Bayfield, they had a band because Mr. Lustig was the band teacher then, and I taught music, vocal music, and English, and I remember his wife Lovis,
Yeah,
and they had quite a big family then.
yeah. I grew up right next to him.
Yeah, and when Bill and I were married in June that year, and then when I got pregnant with Jeff, I got very sick. And so I took a couple month leave of absence thinking, well, you know, you can't have morning sickness too long. I had it for 9 months. And so I never could go back. I said, I can't go back. The doctor said, you're either going to have this baby or you're going to work full time, but not both. You know, and so Lovis took over for me. And of course, she was so happy because she didn't really like being a stay-at-home mother with all these kids. You know, so they were both up there. And then when I got pregnant,
What year was Jeff born?
Jeff was born in 54.
54.
Yeah, we were born in 53. He was born in 54.
Okay.
And then Scott was born in 55. So I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to go back because I started that out being sick too. So for all 4 kids, I was sick the whole 9 months. And I was playing the organ by then still at the Presbyterian church. And so there was a stairway that went down to the bathroom right by the organ. It was before the church was added on. And more than once, I went down and threw up my breakfast and went back up and sat down and played the next thing. And the pastors always knew if Mary's not there, we'll just skip that and we'll make it up, you know. Because there wasn't anybody else at some points that even played the piano.
Isn't that
And
something?
so I played the organ for 25 years in a row
At the
at the
Presbyterian,
Presbyterian church in those early years.
from
Through
about
different pastors.
1953 for
Oh.
63, 73, 78
Yeah.
for 25
Yeah,
years
I
straight.
played for a long time, and then do you remember David Borth in Utoka?
Yeah.
When
You took
they
a
moved,
Fisher Borth?
yeah, when they moved here, she had played in Rock Island, Illinois, and her husband,
Dave.
David, was her love, and music was her second love. And so she wanted to play, and I said, oh, thank you, Lord, you know, because I had had enough by then. So then I could sing with the choir, and I could sing solos and do things like that,
fun.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, 25 years or something is a long time,
That is.
you know.
When you think about it at the time. So let's go back a little bit now. And so you graduated from the hallowed halls of Bayfield High School, and you're all set to go, and off you go to Northland.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about life at Northland in those days for you.
Well, I was home most weekends because I had to go home and help with the paper and stuff.
Okay.
And I worked part of the time in the little print shop there.
What did you do for your dad there?
Oh, I did everything. I set type by hand, because everything was by hand then.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't pasting stuff, you know. And I ran the linotype once in a while when my dad was there, because it was kind of a dangerous thing to run. You know, you could end up with hot metal on you if you didn't do what was right, you know. So I did all of that. I did all of that stuff.
So what jobs were there? I mean, take us through the old press industry back in that period of time. I'm not familiar with it all.
They did note paper for people. They did envelopes for people. You know, all kinds of things. People didn't really stamp things then themselves. You know, and of course there weren't computers then.
Did you go on the road and do interviews and did you do press releases and did you write for the paper at all?
I didn't. No, I really didn't write for the paper.
That was your dad's job then?
Yeah, he didn't. He did all of the writing. You know, when he was linotyping and stuff.
Oh, I see.
And Rita Sense phoned.
Rita May?
different. Yeah, she phoned for local news. I remember that. She'd come in a couple nights after school and phone for local news. But I was mostly doing other things.
Did your dad hire anybody else to help him, or
no.
just you?
No, it was just us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you got a paper out. It came every Thursday or something.
Yeah, every week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it called? What was the paper
The
called?
Bayfield County Press. And Requis had owned it before we got it. You
Okay.
know, so. Trying to think here.
Well, back to Northland, Mary. Like,
Okay.
it was a smaller school then in those days, probably.
Yeah,
huh?
we had a wonderful choir, though, and every year the choir took a tour, and I was lucky when I was a freshman that they went out east,
Oh boy.
and I still remember that if the parents kicked in $10, we could spend 2 of those days in New York City. That's what our parents had to kick in. for us to
$10?
$10. And of course, we went to stage plays, we went to all kinds of things, but we sang all around New England and around Boston and places like that. And,
Really?
yeah, and we mostly stayed at homes of people. We sang in churches most of the time, you know. And I went to Radio City Music Hall. You know, we did things like that.
Did you guys sing there at all?
Oh, we didn't sing there, but we sang in Carnegie Hall.
You did?
Yeah.
Boy, you're a stage lady
Yeah,
here.
I know.
Yeah.
But I still remember it was around Easter, and we saw part of the Easter show in Radio City Music Hall, so we saw the Rockettes.
So you're talking about 1947 now. You're
Yeah,
there.
in there, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So the
So,
Rockettes.
yeah. And I remember at the end of the thing, before the curtain went down, water came up on the edge. You know, they had all these special effects and stuff that they did, you know.
That
So,
must have
and,
been,
and you didn't really appreciate it that much because you were so young. You know, later on when you know more about places in New York, then you think, I was actually there,
Yeah.
you know. And I just remember how big a theater was. It was, you know, we had to walk and walk and walk to get our seats in the show, you know. But
How
what
many
else
kids
did
were
we
in
do?
that choir?
Oh, I don't know.
40 or?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so what
Yeah.
were you? Were you
I was a high soprano.
high soprano? Okay.
Yeah.
Are you still high soprano or is
Well, I had to call Lee Coombs, because I couldn't remember about the time that I lost my singing voice. And it was in the late 80s.
Oh.
And we were going over to the rehab center now, you know, the nursing home
Yeah, okay.
where she worked. And we were going to sing some numbers for the people that were there. And I was supposed to sing this high obligato, and I opened my mouth to sing, and there wasn't any sound. Nothing came out. And my throat had been sore that day, but I didn't think too much about it, and I thought, well, that's strange. That had never happened. And within a couple of days, I felt like somebody was stabbing me in my throat. My throat hurt so badly.
Oh,
So
wow.
when I went over to the doctor and they put that long thing down to look, and whatever had been on my vocal cords was not there then, but they thought they were badly damaged. So I could sing maybe about 3 notes after that, and that was it. So I haven't sung.
no.
Sung since then.
Really?
Yeah.
We were going to get you to sing today.
Oh, I can't sing because I can't be sure that anything is going to come out when I try. I think it's kind of like Julie Andrews, only she lost millions of dollars when that happened with her. You know? But
That stuff happens.
yeah. So and then not long after Bill and I were married too, he was gone for a couple of days on something for Masons or something, and he came home and I said, you know, my ear has been plugged up. You know, sometimes your ear will pop.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and it hasn't popped. It's just feels funny. And so he said, you better go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, and he took this tuning fork and thing, and I couldn't hear anything he did. So he sent me to Ashland, where it's Dr. Hampton. Wait, now, is it Dr. Hamp now? Anyway, I think it was a different doctor then. And so he put me through all the tests. And when I had a really bad ear infection, and it had killed a lot of the inner ear, whatever they call them.
Fibrili or whatever they are?
Huh?
The little fibers in your ear?
Yeah, yeah. And so I could hear really high things. I could hear really, really low things. And there was nothing in there. I couldn't hear anything. And at the time, he said, the little thing that they implant in your ear, in your inner ear, at that time, and this was many years ago, cost $5,000. Not even to think about the surgery to do it. And once it's there, sometimes it works well, sometimes you just want to pull it out because you can't stand it.
Yeah.
You know, so he said, well, you have one good ear, and I could just barely hear, but I can't hear on the phone. I can't pick up the phone and listen with that ear.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
But yet you can still play music and
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
On the
Yeah.
hut, yeah.
So,
Well, Mary, so you're still in Northland now. We're still cruising through Northland
okay.
College over there. You're a freshman and you've had a good year. And it was your sophomore year you went out east then.
No, the end of our freshman year.
So you've had that great year behind you.
Yeah.
Then you got your 2, 3, and 4 coming up, and then you graduate. But so tell us a little bit more about what you remember of Northland in those days.
Oh, let me see. Northland. Mrs. Church was our choir teacher, and she was wonderful. And she also gave us voice lessons and stuff. And I had a senior voice recital my senior year. We went on some kind of a little college choir tour just about every year, but nothing like that first year, not that long.
Okay.
You know, it was never that long.
Okay.
You know, and mostly we sang at churches and, you know, stayed there.
So you get out of Northland College, you graduate, and you got flipped your tassel from this side over to that side, that type of thing.
Oh yeah.
What did you do then?
Well, I met my husband shortly after I graduated from college, and I met him in Park Falls. And Bill was growing up in Park Falls, and he was in the Navy, but he still had quite a bit of time left because he had enlisted, and so we weren't able to get married until 1953. This was in about 1951 or so that we met.
Okay.
You
And
know,
how did you meet?
And well, I knew his sister and his father, and I had gone to something in Park Falls, and he was there. It was kind of funny, and his father said, "Well, why don't you give that nice young lady a ride home?" So okay, so first thing he did was hold my coat upside down, which was, you know, very courteous.
Typical Bill maybe.
Yeah, and gave me a ride home. And then I think his father talked with him because he called me up and apologized for the way he'd acted and asked me to go out. So we went bowling. Bad idea. I'm the world's worst bowler, you know. And anyway, so what did he do? But he came to the door holding this bouquet of flowers, which I found out afterward that his sister had helped at the nursing home, and someone had died and had left this bouquet of flowers. So they said, anybody who wants these flowers. So she took them home to Bill, who gave them to me. You know what I mean? So very romantic.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And I did not
From
like
the
him.
heart.
I didn't like him at all.
Really?
I didn't like him.
What didn't
No.
you like at first?
Well, I thought he was rude and obnoxious. You know.
Well, he had a voice you could hear 2 towns away.
I know. You know, but then he kind of grew on me after he brought the flowers, and then he started being really nice and everything, and then he had to go back, you know, after his leave was up and the whole thing, and so we corresponded for a long time. So we kind of had our courtship through correspondence and everything, and then when he came back here, I had taught. He went up to Duluth 1 year for college, thinking he might be a not home ec.
Industrial arts?
Yes, teacher, and decided no, he didn't want to do anything inside. So he just went the 1 year. He did not really like it. And then of course I'd been teaching at Park Falls, so we decided, well, we would get married and live in Bayfield. So that's what we did. You know, we settled in Bayfield, and of course then I got pregnant and the whole thing happened. You know, with the
family
kids.
life came thereafter.
Yeah, then the family life came.
Well, tell me a little bit about Bill now. We know that he worked for the Bayfield County Forestry Department for quite a few years. He was the head of the Bayfield County Forestry Department, as I remember it.
When we were first married, he was a carpenter.
Okay.
And he was a carpenter for 7 years. And at that time, he was very active in the community. He was active in the American Legion. He was a Mason, and he was a Mason until the day he died. And he was one of the first EMTs, and that was back when Jerry Merkel's...
and Posey Dahlstead were together there, and
Jerry Merkel's hearse was the ambulance.
I remember
they
that.
didn't have an ambulance. So can you imagine waking up halfway to the hospital and you're in the hearse?
good thing they don't put you in the casket
Oh
there.
my God, yeah. And so he was one of the first EMTs, and he was a member of the fire department too as soon as we got married. And eventually he became chief, and the guys kept him on as chief for over 30 years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he did not want to tell them when his health was starting to get bad and stuff, and he could not tell the guys that he had told the mayor, you know, that he had to resign, because he knew they would try to talk him talk him out of it, and he thought, no, there were other people that were capable of doing it, you
Could
know.
step up there.
Yeah, but they have a whole wall, part of the wall in the new fire hall, where they memorialized a lot of things that Bill did, you know, and you can see it by going up there and looking at it.
Yeah.
But that was not where the original
I
fire hall
recognize
had
the old
been.
hat up there.
Yeah, and that's one of his plaques
Yeah.
that he got.
Bill was really a servant of the community.
Yeah.
He did a lot of good things for the community.
He was funny because in some ways he was a very private person, but he was a really good leader of people because he had the philosophy that he was going to treat them with respect. And so I never heard anybody, you know, he would be firm and stuff, but he never asked anybody to do anything that he wasn't willing to do himself. And I still can remember, I think his worst weekends in the years that we were married, one was Applefest, because he was both an EMT and a fire chief. And of course the firemen had their fish boil down at the pavilion. And he was always scared to death that something would happen, either a fire or somebody really get hurt. How would they get to that person? They didn't have that little car scooting around then.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have walkie-talkies and all those different things. And so he would breathe a sigh of relief when they got through.
When Sunday night was over.
Oh my gosh. And the other weekend would be graduation. Because there are so many kids that are drinking and driving and so much drinking going on. And, you know, but those were his worst weekends of the whole year.
How long, I see, as I just rummaged through your Bill's scrapbook a little bit, it sounds like there's a tradition of the Hepners being Masons.
Yeah. Bill's dad was a Mason. Bill was a Mason. And there were pictures of, you know, him with his dad. And then Jeff has been a Mason, too. And at one point, there's a picture in one of those books of all three of them together.
As Masons.
Yeah, as Masons.
Is Jeff in charge of the Masonic Lodge now?
No, but he did. I don't know who's in charge right now because he's had different offices. You know, I don't know. So, you know.
I've got the history of the Masons at home there in Bayfield.
Oh.
I found that in one of the old Bayfield Progresses. Got the names of all this. I'm sure they have the founding fathers up there,
Oh, yeah.
you know, in their vaults. But it's a real interesting group of people.
Yeah. I'm surprised that they've kept it going as long as they have because lodges, people aren't that interested in lodges anymore, you know.
Mary, you were involved, were you in Rebecca's or something like that too? Or?
No. Well, let me see. Oh, I talked about the first home we had, didn't I? Next to Grunky's?
No, not much. No, let's go there.
Okay, let's go there.
Well, after you were married, did you immediately move into Bayfield, or?
No, I was already here,
Yeah.
you know, at the school.
I know you were here, but I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
then
yeah.
Bill.
No, we moved in. At first, we had an apartment right above the press office. Part of the big apartment was turned into a small one for us. And then when we bought a house, that was the first house we bought.
That was the old
Next to-
Whiskers Walksmith's home there?
Yeah, next to Grunky's.
Yeah, that's old Henry J. Walksmith's home.
Yeah, and that was a really nice place when we had kids to raise kids, and because there were so many kids in the neighborhood, you know, like the Goodlet kids and the Gorman kids, and I mean, I miss that part of Bayfield now because
Yeah.
there just aren't lots of kids.
Where are the kids? It's not any community
No,
without kids.
No,
What were your children's names?
Jeff, Scott, Lisa, and Allison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Allison as a little girl, and I was about 19 years old then, and I'd be going by the place, and she'd go, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Nelson! She was a live wire.
Oh yeah, she still is.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff still lives here.
Yeah.
You know, in the town of Bayfield, and Scott, of course, with their families. Scott lives in Reno, and Lisa lives in Louisiana, and Allison lives in Texas.
Boy, are they spread out.
Yeah, so they're really spread out, you know, quite far. But
Tell us about the first house now.
Well, the first house, it's a big house. And the kids loved living there because they were downtown and there's always a lot going on downtown, you know. And they loved having all the neighbor kids to play with and everything. And poor Mary and Goodlet and Vic. I mean, every now and then the boys would do the things where boys would clash, you know, and do something.
Dickie and Bobby and
Oh my gosh, those kids, you know. And then of course the Arsenault kids, you know, and they would all play together. And I still remember one night when, I'm trying to think if it was Jeff or Scott, I was trying to teach him the 23rd Psalm. And it was the first time he ever said it to me without prompting. And he said, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." And I just about died. I thought, oh, okay, I think we better have a talk about this. You know? But I thought,
that is hilarious.
I know. Yeah, because I remember Jeff when he was learning the Lord's Prayer and give us this day our daily bread, and he looked up and he says, "Mama, can I say toast? I like toast better." Oh my gosh. The joys of raising religious children when you're religious. You know?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think what else here.
So did you have to cook a lot of meals and things like that? Were you a pretty good cook in those days, or?
Yeah, I've been a pretty good cook.
I know Bill likes to hunt and fish, and I imagine he had a lot of wild ducks.
I said, "I will cook you venison for you, just don't make me eat it," because I never really liked that. But he would go hunting 1 week a year with all the guys. You know, and they'd go out to Bummy Rabbitoo's cabin, you know, and hunt out there.
I know they used to like to hunt ducks.
Oh yeah, he hunted everything. You know, every season he would hunt something.
How did you prepare the duck? We got to get one of your recipes here. In this
Well, somebody told me the easiest way to do it is just to kind of cut it and lay it flat, and put a can of cream of mushroom soup over it and plop it in the oven, and that was it. I mean, I never ate stuff like that because I didn't like it. So I don't know how good it was, but he used to eat it.
He used to thrive on it, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but I'm trying to look back on my notes here. Oh, when I told you when I first started writing music, and I submitted quite a bit of music to Lorenz Publishing Company in Dayton, Ohio. And over the years, I won two first places in 2 competitions. And when Bill and I didn't have much money, I remember I sent in this one song, and I just had a feeling about that song. And I got a phone call that I had won $200 and had gotten first place. So we turned around and bought a couch.
Oh boy.
I mean, that was a lot of money in those days, you know. And then over the years, I submitted a lot of different things.
And what kind of songs were these, Mary?
They were all sacred songs. Yeah.
What was the name of the song you submitted? Do you remember?
The first one was "I Look for Jesus," and then it was funny because they always covered up the names of the composers, and so that nobody could say, "Oh, I'm going to pick this one because I like something else this person wrote or something or other." And I found out I had been competing with myself for first and second place.
Oh, yeah.
You know, which I thought, well, that's interesting, you know. But
You couldn't lose.
Yeah, and then later on, I won another one.
Now, did you write both the words and the music for this?
Yeah, that's from all that time I had thinking.
Yeah.
You know, running all those presses.
You'd sit there and do some poetry and put it to music.
I know. Yeah, I would stop, and every time I'd take a break and something, and I'd scribble the words down and go home and do something. Or, yeah, Bill got very used to me. Well, at one point, I thought, okay, I'll just sit up on. there was usually a chair or something by the bed, and I'd have a piece of paper and a pencil there. I thought, okay, I can sit up even though it's night, and I can write the words. Yeah, the next morning you can't even read what you wrote.
Right.
You know. So I would get up, and Bill said, why don't you, if you're going to get up in the middle of the night and do something, push your pillow off the bed so if I roll over and throw my arm over and the pillow isn't there, I'll know you're okay, that you're just in the other room doing something, you know. Because I'm very creative in the middle of the night if I can't sleep.
Well, yeah, your mind is really working.
Yeah, my mind is working then, so. But, now back to my dad and the newspaper. My mother passed away in 1957.
And her name was Mamie?
Mamie, from a stroke. And later on, in later years, my father began having strokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had like about 13 years of strokes that we got him through. And sometimes he would live with us. Other times when he got better, he had a little apartment just a couple blocks from us. Mm-hmm. And then he was in quite a few nursing homes, different times. You know, and when he had his first stroke, before the paper was sold, I had to run. Don't ask me how I did it. Gail Solars and her husband lived upstairs, you know, in the apartment that Bill and I had first lived in. And she helped me. I sent the stuff I wanted printed. Virginia Burtness took it over to the Daily Press in Ashland, and they did it, and she brought the type back. I put it in all this huge, huge forms. Mm-hmm. And Gail and I managed to lift the forms onto this rolling table and got it on the big presses. I don't know how many weeks I did that waiting for the paper to be sold. Mm-hmm. How I lived through it, I'll never know.
Wow.
Yeah, because I could never have done anything like that on my own, or, you know. Mm-hmm. But then Jim Jabot got the paper, and then it went through different hands. George Schmidt had it for a while, and, you know, and it went.
I remember when Jim bought it back there. Tell us a little bit about your dad. I always remember my dad saying that Frank Dexter was pretty feisty, and he and H.J. Walksmith were not very good friends. Can you tell us a little bit about that period in time?
He was very vocal about what he liked and what he did not like, you know, and he did not hesitate to tell people. And it was funny because one time he had, Dean Johnson was our minister then.
I remember Dean.
You remember Dean?
You bet.
And my dad got into a disagreement with this lady. And she went over to Grunke's every day with her husband and had coffee break. And they had a rip-roaring argument about something. And of course, Daddy did not hold back his opinion, and she didn't like it. So I went over to Grunke's, which I normally did for coffee, and she didn't talk to me. I said, hi and hello, and as I usually did, not a word. Nice. And I thought, what's the matter with her? So when I got back to the press office, I told my dad, and he said, well, I think she's probably mad at you because she's mad at me because we had a disagreement last night, you know. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay. So I talked to Dean, and I said, this isn't my fight, you know.
Yeah.
This isn't my fault. I'm not mad at her, you know. Mm-hmm. So I just made up my mind, kill her with kindness. Mm-hmm. So every day I went over, I said hello to her, or I would say a few words and be very nice. And then finally, Dean said, don't make her turn you into something you're not, you know, because you don't have any animosity toward her.
Yeah, you didn't pick the fight.
No. Yeah, but that's the way Daddy was. One of his favorite people was Susan Soucheray.
Oh,
and
yeah.
of course, you know how Susan could.
She could go at it too.
Yeah, so they would have an argument about something or other, or they'd have a discussion, which would turn into more than a discussion. You know? But
I can remember. How about remember Joyce Erickson?
Oh yeah.
I think that they were pretty good.
Yeah,
they were pretty good friends.
Because Joyce was that way too.
Joyce was kind of anti-City Hall at times, once in a while too, where she'd take them on, wouldn't she?
Oh yeah. Yeah, but he liked people that were that way. He
Yeah.
liked to know what people thought, and I'm a lot that way myself.
Uh-huh.
You know, I like to know what people think, and that doesn't mean I have to agree or they have to agree with me. You know, but
Leave it on the
yeah,
table when you
he
leave.
and Joyce got along well.
Yeah.
You know, too.
That was quite a town in those days. But Dad says that you never knew what was going to be in the paper after your dad got done with City Hall. And
I know once he went to a council meeting to cover it, and they told him they were not going to have the meeting because they didn't want him there because they didn't know what he would put in the next newspaper thing, and so we all just went home. And I thought, I don't think you can kick the press out of places like that, but
No.
they did. You know? But I thought, oh.
well, he'd also found out, I heard, that Henry Walksmith, he was kind of a little bit on the sneaky side too, and he'd actually burned some of the records of the city of Bayfield, and your dad found out about that.
Oh, that would not be good.
That would be a war right there, wouldn't it, Mary?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. He was a very good dad. Very
Yeah.
good dad. You know, and he was very controlling in a way, you know, when Bill and I were first married, you know, but I thought he's just being protective more than controlling because we still went away and, you know, just did whatever we wanted to do as a family, you know, but when we would listen. I still remember when trying to think if it was Allison, when Lisa was born, and anyway, I wanted to name her Allison, and he didn't like the name. I said, well, maybe I'll call her Lisa or something. Then why don't you name her that?
What?
And I thought, well, okay, I will. He feels strongly about that. So I named her Lisa. And then when Allison was born, I thought, I'll be darned. I'm going to name her Allison. That's what I want her to be named. And I still remember she was in the playpen, and he looked down at her when he says, nice baby. Too bad she's saddled with a name like Allison.
Oh boy! You get
Because
the last
he was
word
thinking
in.
of Allison Bataan.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's a man's name.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, no, that's one of those names for either one, but I still remember that.
Yeah, the only thing that came to his
But
mind was Allison
he
Bataan.
had to get the word in and let me know,
Yeah.
you know, that he wasn't pleased with that.
He had to be there. Yeah.
Oh,
Did he get along pretty good with Bill then?
oh yeah, yeah. The only time, well, I mean, we had so many crises with him, with his health and stuff,
Sure.
you know, and I still remember when he had one of his strokes, and Tom Anderson, who was the veteran person at Washburn, you know, I had to do my dad's taxes, and I had to do all this stuff because I was his conservator. And so he told me to do something, write out a check for some little check for something. So I did it, and it was on the table ready to be mailed, and the taxes were there and everything. And Daddy came in, and he looked, and he said, why are you sending this? And he had just told me to send it, you know, 15 minutes before that, and I told him. And he said, are you trying to give all my money away? And he took all the papers, and he ripped up some of them, and some of them he took home with him.
Oh boy.
And I remember Bill standing up like, I'm going to stop him from doing this because, you know, these are things she has to do. And then I just looked at him and went, no, leave
Don't
it.
go there, Bill.
Don't go there, you know, because, you know, he was not operating with all.
What is it okay to ask what Bill, not Bill, but Frank's political affiliation may have been in those days? Was it a Democratic paper, or was it a Republican paper, or somewhere in between, or?
I'd say somewhere in between, but I think probably more Democrat.
Yeah.
Or Democratic. Yeah. Eleanor Knight's columns appeared in the paper a lot. You know, she was such a good writer.
Well, they were in cahoots there with that series that she'd written for the 1950s there.
Yeah.
There's some wonderful photos of you guys in 1956's.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, we've got them at BH8, some of them down there.
Yeah.
You have any of those photos left of that period in time?
No. I think just about everything all of the newspapers had to be sent someplace, a copy, after the paper, so it wouldn't get lost, and I think most of the pictures and stuff went to the next owner.
Okay.
They weren't, you couldn't keep them yourself or anything. you
Yeah.
know.
Mary, who else worked there at the press?
I did.
Just you and your father?
Yeah, and Rita just
Rita
did the
makes
phoning.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
How big was your circulation in those days?
Oh, don't ask me things like that. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. Be too many.
No, I don't think it was that many.
Yeah.
But
Well, just kind of a fun question. Yeah, your dad is always, the thought of him has always fascinated me because I can still see him. And I always wish I could just sit down with him now and just have a conversation with him because he was a pretty sharp boy.
Yeah.
That's what Dad said. So.
when I was going to college, there was a fellow there that was a close friend of mine, and he was dating one of my girlfriends. And he had a car, and there weren't too many of the kids that had cars. And sometimes when my mother wasn't in good health, he'd say, do you want to ride over and spend some time helping your mom tonight? Because he liked to argue with my dad.
Oh.
They would have debates. I mean, and this was a really sharp young man. He was a little older, than I was. And he absolutely loved to take me over there just so he could sit and talk with my dad.
Yeah.
He'd get on one side of the fence and my dad would be on the other side. And I think he and Susan used to do that a lot.
Sushere?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Who was your dad's best friends in town?
he was so busy. I don't really think he had many.
Did he hang out with the likes like J.P. O'Malley and that bunch?
Oh,
or?
yeah, he liked them. And he liked, John Chappell.
John Chappell was a
Yeah.
good friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, John was pretty big in the press business himself
yeah.
in them days.
I think the newspaper guys used to get together a lot for things. And
I wonder if you ever got to know like guys like old Guy Burnham and the old editors from the Ashen papers.
I don't know. He probably did,
Yeah, fun stuff in the earlier days. What do you got in your sheet there you want to tell us about now?
Well, let me see. On a more frivolous note,
Oh boy, here we go.
back in the good old days, we had the Bayfield Follies. Do you remember them? With music, humor, dancing, and they were sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, and Virginia Burton has directed them. And a lot of us were in them, and we'd play or help people with music and stuff. And I always sang something nice, and then I always did something crazy. Two things. So the one year, the Bayfield band kids were playing an intro before the show started, and our son Scott was playing in the band. So when I got up and I sang the first number, which was, I can't even remember now what it was, and everything was fine, and then later on I got up and I was Shirley Temple with the little curls, and
The
I
Good
was
Chip
Shirley
Lollipop?
Temple, and I did on the Good Chip Lollipop and did a dance. And Scott kept going like this, farther and farther down in his seat, so nobody could see him. And then when we got home that night, he said, Mother, after you sang your Shirley Temple song, the kid sitting behind me leaned forward and said, I'm sure glad my mother doesn't do things like that. and I said, you might as well get used to me, because I'm the only mother you'll ever have,
And I'm going to continue.
And I'm going to continue, to do these things. But
Where were the Bayfield Follies held?
they were held. Let me see. They were held up at the high school.
At the gym there.
Yeah, in the
I
gym.
remember going to that.
Yeah, in the gym.
And it once a year or what?
Yeah, we did them once a year, and then some of the money would be used for something different pretty much each year.
I remember you being there. I remember Verdane Hanson.
Oh, I know, because people did crazy things you never thought they would do.
Bob Lind.
Yeah, he and Betty danced.
Mrs. Erickson, Muriel was there?
Yeah, they did the can.
And who kind of directed or produced the show?
Virginia Burtness directed it. Yeah.
Mert Hoyer?
Oh, just about everybody that I can.
Schultz, Donna Schultz was
Oh
there?
yeah, Donna. Yeah, Donna played for me. And I always wrote a crazy skit for John Spencer and Susan Souchere to do, with lots of jokes about this married couple that couldn't stand each other, and that was always fun, you know.
Really
But
fun.
anyway, then we stopped doing it. We didn't do it for a few years, and then Robert Hanson and Jackie moved here, you know, for the Winfield Inn, and
Oh, yeah.
so he was approached. Well, I think he probably almost died when he saw one of the Follies, because Garner Hadlin made tapes of some of them,
Yeah.
because they were so corny, you know. And of course, Robert and Jackie were from a professional, you know, dinner theater thing,
Oh, yeah.
you know. And so he said, well, he would take it over, but it had to be really good, not corny the way it was. And so I helped with that, you know, a couple times. And I remember the first year we did it up at the high school, and I had to do the music, and I played for a lot of the practices. And of course, Robert wanted every song in at least 2 keys, sometimes more, you know. And so I had to write everything out. And I still remember coming home one evening from a practice and telling Bill, if I don't kill that man before this show is over, it will be a miracle. You know, because we were just like this. I thought, I don't want to put that in another key. I mean, that's all I was doing all day long, you know. And so then afterward, after the show was over, I remember he came up and he kind of apologized to me for how hard he had been on me, and thanked me for all I'd done, and gave me this humongous bouquet, bigger than I was, you know. And I thought, oh, he's not so bad. I think I can get used to him, you know. But he was so used to professionals and people being able to do things quickly, and we were not professionals, you know. But
Pretty
then,
talented in your own right.
but then it went to the dinner theater, the Christmas show, you know. Well, that took me all year long to work on that music, you know.
And is that the one you were with Jerry Phillips and those guys now, or is
no.
that something that spawned out of that maybe?
Oh, no, Jerry Phillips is no, he had that with his business for years. That was that wasn't anything to do with the Follies.
Okay,
You know,
okay,
that was
gotcha.
different. Yeah, but anyway, so then I worked on all the music for the Christmas show, and I played for all the rehearsals. And of course, I'm working on music all year long. And some of their, Jackie and Robert's friends came, you know, professional friends came and helped, were in it and stuff. And I would always tell Bill, honey, next week we're starting the evening practices, so get mad at me now and then get over it, because you know I'm going to do this. Because he would get so tired of sitting here alone in the evenings, you know. It wasn't every evening, but it was long. You know, it was long practices, you know, too. But now let me see what else I had. You wanted to know other community things I was in. I was on the Park and Rec Committee as secretary for over 20 years. I was
Memorial Park and Dalrymple Park and.
Yeah, not Memorial Park though.
Okay.
And on the library board, the election board, the courthouse committee, the pavilion renovation committee when needed, and I was in the Bayfield Junior League, and then we joined with the regular Civic League, and I'm still treasurer of that, which I have been forever. And I take care of Memorial Park, and they'll help me if I need help. But
The Civic League's got a big celebration coming up next year, don't they? Isn't
Yeah.
it like their 100th year or something?
yeah, we have to talk about that this year.
Yeah, Marilyn Van Sant is keying in on it right now. She's real interested in
Oh,
it. I
yeah. Yeah, she was the one that said we should do something special.
Well, you should.
Well, Mary, because you've been involved in all these organizations, you've certainly seen the changes over the years here in Bayfield.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, because back when you first got involved in the community, it was a full community then.
Uh-huh.
So compare that to now in terms of your involvement with organizations. You're still active doing things.
Well, I'm not on the election board anymore, although they always can call me if they need to call me, because they didn't want to take me off. And I'm still in Civic League, and take care of the park and stuff. I'm not on the Park and Rec Committee. I think things have changed over the years with that. Especially with ice skating and stuff. I don't know how many times we changed where the ice rink was. I don't know how many times we changed where the beach was. Over the years. But,
Remember when were you on the committee back in the days when it used to be where the marina is?
oh yes.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
had the platform, we dive off the
we dive
rocks
off.
all the way out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bayfield was a wonderful little town then.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun little community.
Yeah. Yeah. I still remember that little diving board.
Many
Yeah.
many
Well,
dive
okay.
off of that into the icy waters of Lake Superior.
Well, one Apple Fest. I don't know if it must have been around Apple Fest. They put a diving board up in one of the corners on the old dock, and I was one of the people that was to do something off that diving board. And I remember when I hit that Lake Superior water, I thought I'm going to die of a chill. I thought, how people can do the polar bear plunge, I'll never know, because that water at the bottom, and that wasn't that deep off the dock there, But I thought, I don't think I'd want to do this.
Do you remember the old high dive that used to
do
be
this
there?
Too often. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Well, us kids had the platform near the shore. And then
Oh
later,
yeah, and
remember
the
that
other
platform?
the other little platform.
yeah, and then there's the high dive out there. I haven't thought of that high dive until you brought it up right now.
Yeah.
I bet you in 40 years I haven't thought of that.
Now, where was that high dive? All right.
Well, they had it in the corner. They had it in the corner of the dock for quite a while, and they just left it.
Yeah, well, you know where
Which dock?
The old dock, not the new dock. Well, it's part of the new dock now.
it's down in the corner there where
Yeah,
they used
the
to put the
corner.
hack noise.
Yeah.
And there was another ferry landing there when I was a kid,
Oh.
and the high dive was just on this side of
Yeah.
it. So it'd be
Well, when I was growing up in Menasha, I said I would go swimming at the pool in Neenah all the time. And one year they had famous swimmers and divers and their coaches. And I don't know if it was an Olympic preparation thing or something, but there was some big thing that they were all going to compete in. And I had a season pass. And if you had a season pass and you behaved yourself when you were there, you could make arrangements to go over and watch them when they were training and stuff. And then, of course, when the divers would take a break, then if the coaches were nice and they saw somebody that really liked to dive, they would help that person. So this one coach said, oh, well, she looks like she really likes doing this. So he helped me a lot with diving. And then one night my parents came over. They said, we're going to come over and watch you dive tonight and see what you've learned. And so they came over and sat upstairs there, overlooking the pool. And I did all the little things that he had told me how to do. And then when I got home, they said that he had told them he thought I should train. I don't know if he was California's where they trained, and trained to do it professionally. But I thought, I don't want to leave home. No. And I could hear some of those girls in the locker rooms talking about what hard work it was. And then I thought about when you're up on a platform that's 4 times as high as the 3-meter board was. I don't like heights that well. This is nothing I want to do.
You must have been a pretty darn good little athlete at that, though. You must have
Yeah.
been strong pound for pound
Yeah.
to be able to do that. I see the one photo where you're standing on your hands there,
Yeah.
and then probably doing one
Then
of
I
those.
just dive off after.
Yeah.
Let go.
But that takes a good athlete just to be able to do
Yeah.
that.
But it was fun, but I didn't think it would be fun if you had to do it for hours and hours.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I'd like that. And it was good too, because later on when I had my ear problem, I wouldn't have been able to do it,
Right.
you know. So,
In the Civic League, I remember my mother used to be in the junior league and you know, that period of time, and Joyce and
yeah.
all that stuff. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that the Civic League has done in the community.
Well, we've had the park forever, and we've done a lot with Christmas lighting and things like that. And I don't know. I don't think that has changed too much over the years in terms of things that we do. You know, because we're kind of set up as a nonprofit thing. I remember one thing they did that was really fun, and Joyce was involved with it. And I can't even remember what they did it for. I don't think it was the Follies, but they worked up this dance where they wore their clothes backwards. Do you remember that? And then they did the dance, and so they looked, everything was double jointed. I mean, it was the craziest thing. And I remember they did that for something, but I can't remember what in the heck they did it for.
Was that in the early 50s?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe that was for the centennial or the regatta or something.
I don't know.
Do you remember?
I still remember the centennial because my mother and I wore matching dresses.
Did you have the old style clothes on?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I remember Bill with a beard and Legis Murado and everybody.
His beard was red.
Was
Don't
it?
ask me how it got to be red. You know, because his hair wasn't red.
Yeah.
I was very glad when that was done. He got rid of that red beard. You know?
What year was that, Mary?
Oh,
Centennial.
56.
yeah.
Then they had little strawberry festivals after.
Oh, yeah.
Little
We
bit.
had those.
And the Bayfield regatta, were you here?
Um,
Maybe that was before your time.
I think so. I remember the fishermen had something there for a while, but then they didn't have too many. I think it was too much work for the few fishermen that they had left, so so they stopped.
They had the fishermen's days in about 1972.
Yeah. Oh. I still remember one of the first Christmases that Bill and I were married, and they had a show for the little kids down at the. By then, Iverson's Theater was moved up, you know, by the Brownstone, you know, in there.
In the Harbor Theater,
Yeah, Harbor Theater. And they asked Bill if he would be Santa Claus, you know, and just walk up in front and give the kids candy.
I remember that, but I don't remember him.
He went up in front and he had this big bag of candy. I didn't hear about it, but somebody told me about it. And he said, ho, ho, ho. And half the kids in the front row started to cry. He scared them half to death.
Yeah.
And so he came home, he said, don't ever, I think John Spencer, somebody asked him to do it. He says, don't ever ask me to do that again.
All the kids are crying.
I know. Our grandchildren were that way. You know, they tiptoe past Grandpa because I don't know what they thought he'd do to them, you know, but...
Well, he has such a loud, booming voice, didn't he?
Yeah, and he wasn't a big man, heavy or anything, but he was a tall man.
Yeah.
You know, but I still remember that. But no, he's not gonna be a Santa Claus, you know. But I'm trying to think if I had anything else down here. Yeah. No.
Now, Mary, when you were married and after you had the kids and stuff, did you have other jobs outside the home? Or?
Oh, yeah. I had that down. I worked summers at the pier, doing the salads and the salad bar and stuff. And I stopped doing, I think it was over 10 years. And I stopped doing it when Bill retired in '93, because then we wanted to do more traveling and stuff in the summer, you know.
And who
And
was
that-
who was
that-
running the pier at the time?
It was the four people. It was Jack and Shirley at the start, and John and Sharon. You know, they were all four of them. You know, at the
Johnsons.
time. Yeah, yeah. And Sharon still said, in fact, last year she said, every year when I have to make those apple squares, I think, Mary, where are you when I need you? Because Roseanne Buffalo and I did it together for quite a few years.
Yeah.
You know, and oh, we got so sick to death of those apple squares. Oh.
They were hot sellers though.
I know. Well, the first year we did them, we were the only group in town, restaurant in town, that had apple squares. The next year, every other stand was apple squares, you know, because I think they realized, you know,
Figured that one out
how
quick.
much people liked them. But all the years, for a lot of years, I went up every few days to the school and played for like the junior high choir and the high school choir and stuff, through all kinds of teachers and stuff.
So you volunteered your time up there a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. And then after a while, it was kind of a mini job. You know, they didn't pay you much, but they paid you for going up, you know. But, and it was kind of fun to keep up with things, too, so.
See the kids, and were you up to school when your own kids were there a little bit, or was it
Oh,
beyond?
yeah, I was president of music parents and different things like that, so.
Yeah.
I always had to be busy doing stuff. I was Grand Marshal in the Apple Fest Parade one year,
Oh.
and two of the fellows that worked up in Channel 3 rode in the parade with me, one on either side. I can't remember who drove the convertible, but we were sitting up on the back. And when we started up here on the corner, and up there on the corner, and whoever was driving, the first time he hit the brakes, I almost turned a somersault and landed in the front seat. And if those guys hadn't grabbed a hold of my clothes in the back of me, I would have been sitting next to the driver. You know, because he had to stop every few seconds, you know. So then they decided, they were whispering, we better do something so she doesn't do that again. So they rigged their arms up so that there was no way I could possibly end up, you know. But I had to practice my wave, you know, the whole thing you do. And usually my sister and her family would come over here, and the house was full of kids for Apple Fest, you know, and their kids and everything, and grandchildren. And I remember that year was '97, and my sister had several strokes,
Okay.
and then she got ALS, and she was on her last stages of ALS.
Oh boy.
And she came over, and I remember when we came around close to there, her smile was like this. And she died just a couple months after that.
Isn't
you know.
that?
So, because it hit her.
That's Rudy's wife.
Yeah, it hit her swallowing muscles,
Oh boy.
and so she really starved to death. You know, after a while she couldn't even drink anything. You know, so she just kept losing more and more weight, and you know. But I told them when I wrote a thank you, and I said, if you ever had to honor me like this, I'm so glad it was this year. You know, that she could be there. You know,
Yeah.
so. But
Yeah, I knew Rudy real well in Ashland.
yeah.
I knew him better than all the kids, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was funny because when we went down the street, less and less people. And then when we turned the corner down by the inn, even less people. And finally we got to the end, and the three guys and I looked at each other and I said, was that our 15 minutes of fame? Is it over now? Because it was so funny. There were so many people along the way, and then all of a sudden, nothing.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, but
I gotta change cards here, so we'll take a break, Mary.
yeah.
So Mary, you've had quite a storied life here in Bayfield. You got wonderful parents and you wonderful husband, and we know that you have some wonderful children too. And can you kind of just tell us a little bit about your kids and get into your grandchildren too?
Okay.
Let's 50 years from now when this is on tape, maybe people will be real interested in that too.
We had 4 children, Jeff, Scott. Jeff was born in 54, Scott was born in 55, and then there was a little break, and then Lisa was born in 59, and then there was a longer break, and Allison was born in 65. So it was just like having almost 3 totally different families, you know. Yeah, and Jeff still lives here in Bayfield, in town of Bayfield, and
Who's Jeff married to? And
Cindy,
Cindy.
Yeah.
Fick.
yeah, and they had 2.
What was her maiden name?
Thick. Yeah, and they had 2 daughters. Yeah, and
Is Katie one of the daughters?
yes,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, she's the younger daughter,
And what do they do these days?
Kristen. Well, Kristen is married, and she and her family live in Duluth. She and her husband live in Duluth, and she's teaching at a private Catholic school there, and let me see, Scott is living in Reno. They had 6 children. Don't ask me what they're all doing. You know, but Billy is in the Navy, and they still have one at school at home that Scott is homeschooling, and then the other girls are kind of grown up and they're working in Reno and stuff. So
Just out of curiosity, what does Scott do out there? I know he went in the Navy himself, if
Yeah,
I remember right.
yeah, both of the boys were in the Navy.
Yeah.
He works for one of the casinos in their laundry thing. You know, he's only working like 3 days a week now so that he can homeschool the last child, because Jeannie homeschooled all the other kids. You
Okay.
know, and she wanted a break, so she's working full time as a nurse. You know, and Lisa's living in Lafayette, Louisiana, and her 2 girls both live in the Twin Cities, and they're both grown now. And Allison is living in Houston, and she has 1 daughter that's grown up, and 2 little girls that are younger. You know, so
Okay.
So
So you're a
they're
grandmother
spread
many
all
couple
over.
times there.
yeah.
And a great grandmother too, I take it?
Well, I will be a great grandmother at some point this year, because 2 of my granddaughters are pregnant. You know, so.
Well, congratulations to
yeah,
that.
I know.
That's scary, isn't it, after
Yeah.
all these years?
Well, when Bill and I had our 50th wedding anniversary, Jeannie said, "Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll have something at the Bayfield Pavilion, and we'll invite everybody in town to come." And I said, "Well, that'll be so nice. Everybody will be there but Bill and me." Because that's not the kind of thing that he would particularly have liked, that many people. And so we decided that we would just have something at Jeff's house, but luckily all our kids could come, and all our
Nice.
grandchildren could come. You know, and some of them hadn't even seen each other for years. But he retired from the county in '93, and he'd had back surgery and, you know, odds and ends of things wrong, you know, over the years. But then he got colon cancer in '97.
97?
Yeah, and then he went through all of the chemo, the 6 months from hell, he called it. You know. And then that seemed to be okay. So then he got prostate cancer. And Dr. Cook said, "Well, why did you have to go and do that?" You know. And then he ended up with heart problems. And then his prostate cancer seemed to be better, and he had radiation for that. 7 weeks of going up to Duluth every day. And
Boy.
then it came back and spread to first one lung, and within 2 weeks it was in both lungs. Yeah, so.
What year did Bill pass now?
2004.
2004
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. But
He,
and he did not want to have a big funeral.
Mhm.
And he had trouble with it when his dad died. And I have played for hundreds of funerals
Mhm.
at that church. I'm not a fan of funerals.
Yeah.
You know, every time I would come home, he could tell. I did more crying than the family, you know. And I said I practically flooded the funeral home when my mother died. I couldn't make it through my sister's funeral. I had to go out and stand in the back and look through a window. You know, I don't handle grief well in public places. And he told me he did not want anything. And boy, did I take flack from everybody for that.
Oh boy.
Because, yeah, we would have had the ambulance down there. We would have had the fire trucks down there. I said, I know, and that's one of the reasons that I did not want it.
That would have been his honor guard, see.
Yeah, no. And he told Allison, because he knew what the kids would say when I said, we're not having any formal funeral service. Well, Mom, you have to. I mean, I knew some of them would say that. And Allison said, Dad told me I have no control over what happens when I die. But I do not want this. I don't want to put your mother through this. You know, he said, I don't want this. So he was cremated, you know, and then the kids took his ashes out on the lake, you know, but no, that was, I took a lot of flack from people for that.
Around town?
Well, yeah, just, well, why didn't you do that? Or, you know, or I wish you'd done that because we would have such, and I thought, no. You know, I still have trouble when I go to other people's funerals, and I thought, no, I don't
Well,
need
in
that. I
addition
don't
to
need
that, you're honoring his
Yeah.
request.
Yeah,
There's just no question, he'd have been, that's what he wanted, you have really no choice.
Yeah.
Like,
So Mary, do you have your instructions written down for your,
well, yes, I do. I even have my funeral service planned with some of the music that I wrote.
so you are gonna have a funeral?
Well, yeah, all my kids can come. I said, Jeff is he's my person to do everything, you know what I mean? Although Cindy will probably do most of it
Executor.
for him. Yeah, everything. So all that is worked out, you know. And he has to pay for the kids to come. Because then they'll get together. Because I remember when we were still, Allison was still here that whole month of December. And she said, Mom, what's going to happen when you die? Who's going to keep us together? And I said, you're going to stay together, you kids, or I'm going to come back and haunt you if you're ever so angry that you don't still love each other. I'm going to haunt you. And so I don't think they want me to come back and do that. So, you know, but it was surprising because some other people said, I'm so glad that Bill decided to do something different because now I will feel better about doing something different because I just want to have a get-together at my house, or I don't want something formal and big, you know. And I thought, it's fine, whatever you choose to do. It was funny because Jeff asked me once, well, Mom, do you want to be cremated? What do you want to happen? And I said, yeah, I want to be cremated. And he said, well, where do you want your ashes put? And every now and then my mind will take flight and go someplace else. And I said, well, Jeff, I do a lot down at Memorial Park. I said, you could always sprinkle them down there, and then when league members are working and the wind comes up, they can say, there goes Mary. And he said, Mother, you don't joke about things like that. And I said, yes, I do.
you do have a little sinister mind there, dear.
I know.
Yeah.
Every now and then my mind just has a mind of its own.
Yeah,
you know, but,
it just takes a little ramble on you there.
yeah, I know. So,
Yeah.
are you out of questions?
We've covered everything,
Yeah.
pretty much, John.
Oh, I know something that I wrote at the end. Now, I'm sentimental. I'm very sentimental. And I wanted to say that I feel very blessed as a person because when I was growing up, I had a few wishes of what my life would be like, and all of the things that I've wished for have come true. I had wanted to have a happy marriage, which I had. I hoped to have children and grandchildren, and we did. We have 4 wonderful children and 13 grandchildren at this point. And I wanted to have at least some of my music published, and I've had over 40 things published. And I never wanted a lot of money. I never wanted fame, anything like that. I never wanted an easy life because none of those things ever were really important to me. I think in the family I grew up, they weren't important at all. In fact, I was glad that we didn't have lots of money because our kids learned how to work. Our kids learned how to be responsible. You know, and I grew up in a family of people that worked very hard. And I think when you put in the effort, you appreciate what comes back to you. Otherwise, if you're just handed everything, I don't see how you could ever really appreciate what you
I think your life is really fulfilled because of your attitude and you know, the positions you took in life.
Yeah. Oh, I have to tell you something funny. I told you about, that wasn't on the camera, about my driving.
No, you could talk
Okay.
about that.
Let's
yeah.
get into that driving thing a little here too.
Okay. I'm very sentimental, and I manage to cry a lot, even at weddings on television. But I also like to laugh, often at myself, which is a good thing. And one thing I once tried to do and gave up on was learning to drive. My dad gave me one lesson, and that was a kind of a bad idea. Bill gave me one lesson. That was another bad idea. And a second lesson, we probably would have been divorced a day later. You know, but so I take the BART bus. And there for a while I was really proud of myself because I knew the first name of every driver on that bus that I rode with. But now they have so many more drivers and so many more routes that I've kind of lost track, so I don't know the first name of any of them. But they managed to get me just about any place I want to go, or Jeff and Cindy, or or friends, and now we have this wonderful new 3-manual organ at church, and so they say when you get older you're supposed to keep physically active and mentally active. So the organ is my mental activity, as I'm trying to learn how to do that. But walking has always kept me physically active, But I have to tell you something funny that happened this month. Well, no, in December it happened. When Jeff comes to the house, if it's in the evening, he pounds really hard on the door. He's the only person that does that. And when I take a bath or shower, I've got my little chain on the door. Okay, so here there's this loud pounding. And I thought, oh, it's Jeff. So I'm sitting in the bathtub soaking. I had washed my hair. So I hopped out of the tub. I wrapped myself in a big towel. I went to the door. I undid the chain. I opened the door. There stood our minister
Oh,
and several ladies from church and a whole group of little kids who came to sing Christmas carols for me. Well, the look on Debbie Weber's face was priceless. She said, "Go get a bathrobe on." I guess they laughed all the way down the street,
good story.
I know, and I said, "Well, that was kind of a fun Christmas memory, But I said Jack the Ripper would have loved me. Bill said he was always glad I hadn't learned how to drive because I would have picked up every hitchhiker and I wouldn't have survived too long at that rate, probably, But so.
Okay.
Well, did I take you on enough of a journey?
Wonderful journey.
Oh,
It was a lot of
okay.
fun. A lot of. Every time we do this, John, we always forget something.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure that something will pop into your mind too. So, but I'll tell you what, it was wonderful, and the stories are great. You got to say hi to Bill, and you got to say hi to Frank today a little
Yeah.
bit, and so Thank you
Yeah.
very, very much for sharing everything you did.
Well, I wrote down so much because I've always wished that I had Harriet Johnson's memory,
Ah,
because I think she remembers everything that she has ever read or experienced in her lifetime. That's not me.
yeah.
You know, some people just have that, and you know.
Okay.
Let's get some of these pictures.
Yeah, that's what we want to get. You know,
Thank you,
pictures of
Mary.
the. Of
Thank
the
you very
album.
much, Mary. That was
Oh,
great.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, Mary, what is this?
This is one of the first pictures that Bill and I had together when we had first met.
And so what year was this?
I would think 1951 in there. And I don't know what year that one is that you've got.
A little bit later.
And where are you standing in front of her?
We're standing in Park Falls, in front of a house in Park Falls.
Yeah, okay. So when was this taken, or where was it taken to start with?
It was taken downtown in Bayfield.
Bobby, you're standing in the light. Sorry.
That looks kind of like it might be the pier. I don't know.
By the pavilion there.
So,
Yeah,
Or the.
Yeah, he was a tall guy, wasn't he?
yeah.
How tall was he?
He was 6 feet. And of course, I'm 5 feet. But I can't remember. I just know it was a summer picture.
Okay, Mary.
And that's a picture, Navy picture of Bill.
So this would be, what, in the 40s? What year, roughly?
I'd say in the 40s. Yeah, late 40s.
So that after the war, we're talking about.
He was in the Korean conflict,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
Yeah, he was over in the Philippines. He was in the Navy Seabees.
Handsome.
Yeah.
I can see why you fell for him, Mary.
And he was very short when he was in high school. And after we were married, we went to a class reunion that he had in Park Falls, and there were people that didn't even recognize him because
He had his growth.
he was so much taller. Yeah.
He had his growth spurt later in
Yeah.
life. Okay, John.
Okay, Mary, who's this now?
That's me.
That's
Who's this now? Come on.
you. And
You should have seen me with my white hair. Then you would really say, "Who's this now?"
Yeah.
so when was this? Was this your?
This was probably early 50s, I would think. See what a good memory for dates I have.
Say. Okay. Who is on the picture here, Mary?
Bill, Tony Kovacevic, and Mike Bonney. And I don't know what the occasion was for that.
It looks like presenting somebody with
Yeah,
a
something.
pin or a medal.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
when Tony retired.
I don't know.
I'll bet you it was.
Yeah, from the fire department.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was in the 80s.
Yeah.
About 1985.
Okay. Okay, point out who's who on these, Mary.
Bill, me, Scott, Lisa, Allison, and Jeff.
Okay, taken about when?
It was taken in 2003.
Oh, just before Bill died?
Yeah, yeah. At our 50th wedding anniversary celebration. And it was out at Jeff Hepner's house in town of Bayfield.
Right next to the Queen's Orchard up
Yeah.
there.
Nice picture.
Isn't that great?
Okay.
Top one.
Oh, hang on.
See why it takes two people to do this
Oh,
job?
yeah.
So,
This is Bill and Mary. And this was the day we were married when we were getting ready to leave on our honeymoon, our one-day honeymoon. And this is my father and my mother.
okay, let me just go down here. And where was that taken?
This was taken in Bayfield.
These are fun photos, I'm telling you.
And their names again?
These?
Yeah.
Oh, Frank and Mamie Dexter.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Tip it up a little, or?
Just a second. Hang on. Okay, Mary, now tell me about this picture. Where was this?
This was taken on Madeline Island at Frank Woods's home and his pool.
You're diving off
I'm diving off his board.
his board. When would this be?
Oh, gee.
You look young there.
Yeah, I would say probably maybe in the 40s, late 40s. And this is the same place.
What were you pointing to?
I was
Oh yeah, there's
doing
another
a back
one.
dive,
Doing a backflip there.
a swan dive and a back dive.
Yeah. Hang on, Bobby. I got that. So that when I get focus on again.
John will take this stuff home tonight and edit it, and
Oh, okay.
he's got another 3 hours ahead of him yet.
Okay. Okay, Mary.
Jeff put mid to late part of the 1940s, and this was at the Bayfield Harbor. Oh, during some sort of regatta or something.
On the Bayfield Regatta.
Yeah,
So this was down at the dock in
down
Bayfield?
at the city dock at Bayfield.
And so what are you doing here?
Well,
What
you
kind
do
of
a
dive?
you do a handstand, and then you lift yourself off and go in the water head first in a dive.
So you're gonna go straight down vertically
Yeah, I'm
from
gonna
that.
go straight down.
Yeah, those are, you gotta make sure you don't hit the board on the way down.
Oh yeah.
Avoid the board at all costs.
All right, great.
It looks
So-
like the same dress, doesn't it?
So what is this top one I'm on now? What is that?
That's just a picture that was taken at one of the follies.
Bayfield Follies.
Yeah,
And you're in some kind of a role there.
yeah. I was
Some skit.
probably preparing to sing a romantic duet with Preston G.
Okay, and then now the bottom one, Bob. Put that up.
Get my fingers out of the way. So all you want is my fingers, right, John?
I'm on the bottom picture.
Okay.
Okay. So what is this, Mary?
This is from the Bayfield Follies, and this is Preston G. and I are singing a duet.
You had a lot of fun in those follies.
Oh yeah, it was fun. Corny but fun.
Okay.
You want the name of it?
Yeah.
It's an organ number, which is being played on the piano, and it's called The Shadow of the Cross. Since this is Lent, it should be appropriate.